All right.
Good morning, everyone. This is the SWAN Fireside Chat for October 27th, 2020. This is Aaron Skogum, the SWAN Executive Director. We have this meeting monthly now, and we have a number of SWAN staff present. We're going to go over some of the changes that we are starting to see within our setup due to the pandemic, or changes that we are going to be looking to ask you about. And then also we're going to go over some interesting new software features that are coming your way, and then have a few polls at the end. So we'll engage with you towards the end, get your feedback in these straw polls. So let's move on to present our agenda here. And my name's Aaron Skogel. I'm the SWAN Executive Director. If I didn't say that already,
I don't know why the agenda isn't. Okay, there we go. We were paused.
Okay.
You seeing it now?
I'm seeing it.
Okay.
So we're going to go over, just to recap, our COVID-19 resource pages. We've actually reorganized this, so we just want to make sure that you all know where to look, and we've really helped try to make sure that the information here is concise, and we've removed a lot of things that were posted over the last 6 months. We'll do a update on what's going on with the Rails delivery. There was a big change that was announced yesterday, and we're going to go over that. And then just recap the Realm study updates. And then we have some the unique management curbside communicator. Stephen's going to go over what some of those changes are coming your way with that product. And then mobile app, the Blue Cloud mobile app has some updates coming, which we'll go over. Tara will be going over that, Tara Wood. And then some self-check-in considerations. So self-check-in, which we mean is your self-check machines configured perhaps in a way to allow patrons to check in material. So there's a lot to look at with that. So I believe Ian Nosek's going to be on this meeting to go over some of that with you all. And then we've got some system updates, which we'll get into. And then, of course, our Aspen project. This will be moving into a pilot phase. And then we'll conclude by recapping our SWAN 100 project, the 3 libraries that are joining SWAN, which I'm seeing some of them on today's Fireside. So thank you for joining us. Beep. The COVID-19 resources section of the SWAN support site. As I noted, we've reorganized this for all relevant content. So the banner was removed. If you're wondering where did all that go, if you go to the help menu, and you will see then the menu options under help desk, using help desk, known issues, search dynamics help, and COVID-19 is now the menu you would click on to reach this page, which has the service status changes and those listed if you want to update your status. And then what we're looking at as far as the reopening, expanding services, or changing services. This may be something that you all also will be having to look at with the regions that we're in starting to go into a maybe further restriction as part of the Illinois plan. In emergency closings.
Whoops.
Oh, sorry. In emergency closing. Emergency closings are something also that if you're needing to inform us of your library needing to close, or you can update your days closed. And just a checklist as far as, letting Rails know, and then updating SWAN. So let's move on. All right, so the big news that we got yesterday, late afternoon, is that the Rails 7-day quarantine has been rolled back to 3 days. So this memo was posted on the Rails website under the COVID-19 section, and then there was an email that went out to library directors in the library director list. So we do have a link to the Rails COVID-19 page for details on this. So essentially, this is just going back to where we were, which was 3-day quarantine. We'll be ending the 7-day quarantine requirement. And of course, even when we entered the 7-day quarantine, we needed to make at least 2 system adjustments. And but knowing that we're also going into this further lockdown phase, we didn't want to immediately jump into any system changes. So Dawn, I don't know if you want to jump in here as far as what we're looking at. You know, the items received from delivery as far as announced do not need to be re-quarantined. It's more items processed. And they emphasize again and again, do not store your items in the blue bins. I think Rails has been experiencing a shortage of these blue delivery bins.
Yeah, and we actually do have a couple polls related to this change. So I'm going to pull these up now. So let me launch this poll. So if you could all just, you know, take a minute to respond to that poll. To get an idea if that change in Rails is going to change your internal policies and time frame. Right, and we're collecting responses, and we'll give it another minute.
You never let us vote, Dawn, the
I know.
SWAN staff.
You can't vote. You can't vote. You can vote next week. Hopefully you already have.
Suppression, right? Yeah, I did.
All right, so I'm not seeing many more changes. 63% of the folks have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share it with all of you so you can see what the results were. Okay, so it looks like 2/3 are going to change their internal time frame based on this change of Rails. So we've got one other question related to this that I'm going to go ahead and pull up. All right, let's find out what your minimum quarantine period is at this point. I'm seeing the numbers grow a little bit. Just give you another minute to answer that poll. We're seeing, not surprisingly, very similar results.
Yes.
Which is interesting. So let me go ahead and close that poll, and I'm going to share it with you.
So not surprising,
Okay.
3-day.
Yeah, and we do have still some libraries that are quarantining for 7. So that will mean now that just remember that the Rails delivery is only 3. So as you accept something from delivery, if your internal standard is 7, then those have not been in a full 7-day quarantine. So just all the fun math with quarantine. All right, let me hide this poll and get us back on track.
So the change from Rails, as I noted, that was posted on their site. I'd been kind of eyeing it, hearing that this may be something that may be coming. It wasn't very clear. Ted Bo-Davis and I, the SWAN board president, and Thomas Ford, Memorial Library Director, has also been letting me know that there was some of this discussion taking place. So if some of you are hearing this for the first time, we apologize, and it's really just news that hit us. We had to really we had to go back and update this presentation for today to process this news. So Dawn, I don't know if there's anything more we want to say. I think everyone's used to the 3-day quarantine. I'm sure libraries are going to be wondering about some of the setting changes and such. But like I said, for now, SWAN has not planned to make any changes.
Right. So we've got a couple of questions coming in. One is that, some people answered that yes, they would be changing, but in honesty, they just found this news out, so they have to think about it and regroup with staff and everything. So that's totally understandable. Um, we also have a question about the accrual of fine periods. Can we keep that in place? And at this point, we are still doing that accrual delay for 7 days. We know we're in an uptick in COVID cases. We don't really have any plans right now to change that until we're on a better path with COVID in the region, and we're not there yet. So this is where we're at with the current state right now.
All right. All right. So this is a call for letting us know if you're gonna, opt in for hold notifications or the unique collection service, pick up anywhere resource sharing. If your situation is going to change, make sure you report any closures that you're having or any time sensitive changes to us. I think that's obvious, but we just need to, make sure that when you all are dealing with stuff on the ground or in your libraries, it's very easy to just be overwhelmed, especially if you're having to close for a period of time. Um, don't forget to add to your checklist to let us know. So the cashless transaction management, this is something that we've also been wanting to make sure libraries are aware of as techniques for getting away from handling cash in terms of, ways to deal with items in the system. And I don't know, Dawn, if there's anything you want to add here or if there's other SWAN staff that want to talk more about this. It's basically allowing patrons to pay online via the credit card. Not every public library or every library in SWAN has ProPay. I mean, it's by far the majority. There's just a handful, less than, that don't have ProPay. And even some that haven't, I've tried to get them back on the path to make sure that they have ProPay to get away from handling cash and coins.
Yeah, and we put that help guide on. It's just a documentation page on the support site. We put that together to let people know that you don't have to have the full cash management module activated. With the tools all of us are using in workflows, if you have ProPay, you can make this work right now very, very easily.
Ooh, goody, Realm. So we're gonna do a walkthrough of the Realm project. So for those that aren't aware, this Realm project has been working its way through various survival rate of the virus on various materials that libraries typically handle. So they've gone from like probably some of the more common surfaces, moving through a list towards, maybe less common, such as synthetic leather, otherwise known as pleather or leather, and then some of the other things like DVD cases at the top of this list. So this is testing also some items in a stacked configuration or items in an unstacked configuration. And this is where a lot of the, I would say, libraries in states or regions were looking at this information to then see if their public health officials can make recommendations to libraries as far as what to do about quarantine materials and based on the information and the science. So the first round, and each realm study round, we're just going to go through these quickly. They have a chart. They show the survivability of the virus. So there's like a dotted line LOQ that is noted here. So the first round went through hardback, softback, paper pages, these things noted here. And then we get to the second round. This got more specific with things like paper, braille, the magazine pages, board books, archival folders. So depending on the type of material they were seeing, this virus is detected, depending on the surface.
And what we were seeing with every test is that the quarantine period was going up. The recommended quarantine period, and that's kind of, I think, why we saw the 3-day go to 7-day, and now it's back down to 3-day, just with some additional evaluation of what this data really means. Is it is the quantity of virus that is on these surfaces really comparable to the quantity of virus that would be in a non-research environment? So.
In the fourth round, we're looking at, these results showing, 6 days of quarantine, was still detected on these 5 materials, plastic protective cover DVD cases. It seemed like, more plastic surfaces, there was detection longer. And then the fifth round, this is the stacked versus unstacked. So this is where we started to really see that the stacked versus unstacked configuration, we'll just call it a configuration, or stacked versus unstacked material, such as how you would store material, would be showing this, the virus being detected maybe longer. And this last round was the leather and synthetic leather. These were having much longer detection than other types of materials. So this is information that, at the local level, you may have to parse out and deal with. I would say, depending, maybe there's some adjustments you would need to make. I mean, the leather pleather thing, I was thinking more about this in terms of like any seating or any other surfaces like that. Wouldn't you say, Dawn, that would be something also to think about?
Yeah, I think this particular round 5 showed that our environments are probably more susceptible to the virus than the materials that we circulate, is
Right.
what it kind of boils down to.
Right. Oh, and the 6th test is coming our way. This is probably going to be more about the surfaces that our libraries have, such as, the doorknobs, brass fixtures, windows, glass, those sorts of things. And I am guessing that libraries right now are doing a lot of frequent cleaning or wipe down of these surfaces. The libraries that I have visited recently over the last week or so are all following really nice procedures in terms of having a greeter at the door, making sure that the amount of patrons coming into the building understand what they have to wear masks. But those sorts of things are also probably being accompanied by some frequent cleaning.
All right, we're ready to bring Stephen on deck.
All right, let's talk about curbside. I'll turn off my camera.
Yeah, so curbside communicator. So I'm going to chalk this one up as good news. So the good news is we're getting an upgrade to curbside communicator, the unique curbside communicator that I think about 40 of our libraries are still using. And the changes that you're actually going to see are pretty minimal. So I've scheduled this upgrade with Unique. They're going to be performing the upgrade on the evening of November 8th. That's a Sunday. So they're going to be doing that in the evening, and then it'll be ready for your use first thing that Monday morning, Monday, November 9th. So I'm going to send news posts and SWAN comms just to remind everyone that that's happening. But just be prepared. There's going to be an upgrade to curbside communicator November 8th. It'll be ready for you November 9th. Now, the big aspect of this upgrade is they're actually migrating to a different messaging platform. So the interface will remain largely the same, except for some graphic changes, and there are little tweaks that make it a little bit easier to use, a little more friendly. But by and large, your experience is going to be the same, and your patron's experience is going to be exactly the same. So really, the advantage here is that we're getting a lot of the bug fixes that we needed to have. There have been some outages off and on that we've heard reported, or sort of delays in the messaging interface. Unique is moving to a new carrier that should resolve all of those issues. So it's really exciting. Actually, we're familiar with the carrier that they're moving to, and we're pretty happy that they're making that change. So again, I want to reiterate, what is not changing is the patron interface. So the patron will still be able to text, they'll still be able to use that web interface that they were using before. The integration with Blue Cloud Mobile will remain the same. They can continue to use that URL and everything. The phone number that the patron will be texting that your library has been provided will also remain the same. And then again, the URL for the patrons that they'll be accessing will remain the same. Now, what is changing is the URL for your staff interface. So the old URL will no longer work after the migration has occurred. So you're going to be using a new URL, and I'll reiterate that URL in all of our messaging that goes out to you. You're going to move over to that instead. Unique is also going to be sending you an email after the migration has completed with your new login information. So it's going to be the same email address as you're using before, but you're just going to have a new password. So the URL is going to be different. Your email address that you use to log in is going to be the same, but the password is going to be different because this is moving to a new platform. So they're going to be doing a wide-scale password reset, and I'll be sending the default password. I'll make sure that everyone knows that default password as well. And then Unique will also have communication. So you're going to hear from us, you're going to hear from Unique. Just there will be a lot of reminders. You'll be well aware that this is going to be taking place. And so again, just to reiterate, you see a screenshot here of the staff interface. It's pretty similar. You can see your history with the previous chats. You can see your alerts for active chats. It makes it very obvious whether you're online or offline now. And in fact, the communication, it's really cool because the communication is now customizable if you are offline. So it can say something like, sorry, no library staff are available to use Curbside Communicator with you right now, or the library is closed. So you can actually work with Unique to customize that messaging as well. So this is only a good thing. We'll say it's good news.
So the two things we need to know, Stephen, is that this doesn't impact our patrons at all. So there's no messaging that we have to get out to our patrons. And secondly, on Monday, November 9th, we're going to need to sign in with a different URL and password.
That's right. First thing Monday morning on November 9th, you'll be signing into a new URL and you will have a new password to access it.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, Tara, Blue Cloud mobile app.
All right. So we just at the end of last week got the newest version of Blue Cloud Mobile. So we're just starting to test some of the new features that have come with that release. So these new features, before we dig into them, I do want to assure you they are disabled on release. So nothing's changed in your app right now, and nothing has to really change in your app in the near future. You can just choose to leave it all as is if you want. So we are the SWAN UX team and IT teams are working together to test that, and we will be looking at a few libraries to work with on testing out configuration before we look at deploying these features kind of in a more widespread availability. And that's partly because they're both in what Cersei Dynix calls a global pilot. So they haven't been completely tested yet, and they are relying on all of their customers that are interested to do some testing and make sure that they will work for us. So when we have tested, we will provide some training and configuration on the new features, and then we'll be that kind of first line of support and troubleshooting for you. So with that, let's talk about what the heck these new features are. So the first one is self-service, and actually, I will say this became available in the previous release, and after testing we realized it did not work with our barcodes. So that's why testing is very important. So with this release, those barcode issues have been fixed. So the patron self-service has a couple components. The first is you can use the Blue Cloud mobile app to check out using the item barcode. And that service is free. There's no additional cost. It will just require the setup there. So we've preliminarily tested that and have confirmed that at least the barcode scanner is working now, which is great, but we still have a little bit more testing to do to make sure that will work, especially related around the GPS. It relies on your GPS location coordinates so that checkout is only available in your library, but we have not yet tested that piece out. There's also a possibility to use beacons, and we have not yet thoroughly investigated that possibility yet either. So again, the barcode checkout is free, but some other components come at additional costs, and those are RFID checkout and check-in, and barcode check-in. So any kind of barcode, any kind of check-in, whether it's RFID or barcode, would require an additional cost, and anything using RFID would be an additional cost. And those would also require the use of beacons, which again, we want to make sure we test. So with that kind of brief overview, we're wondering if you all are interested at all in check-in. We know there's a couple libraries interested in checkouts. We had a little bit of a forums post discussion on that, but we would like to see if any of you are interested in having patrons be able to check in their own items using the mobile app.
And just to put it in context, Ian's going to talk about the challenges of what check-in does, especially in a consortium with a lot of resource sharing. We all know that when we check something in, it may need to go on shelf, or it may trap a local hold, or it may say you got to put this in transit. And so having those triggers happen at the point of a patron initiated check-in really does challenge us in how we accommodate this in the system. All right, this poll looks, it's moving a little bit. Let me see. We've got 62% have voted. If we get to 65% voted, I'm going to publish it. I'm not seeing any movement, so I'm going to go ahead and share our results here.
Okay, so it looks like for most of you it's no, and for a few of you may be interested.
Okay. Tara, do you want to do the poll on checkout while we're
yes,
here?
let's do the poll on checkout.
All right. So let's ask the question about, are you interested in checkout?
Does this require a beacon?
Checkout does,
We're not
maybe
sure.
does not. We're not sure. It is in theory possible to use it with just GPS coordinates. Check-in would definitely require a beacon, but this is for checkout, just to make sure we're not confused.
And we're going to talk about the beacon, right?
We're doing some research on it now, so we're not ready just yet to talk about how the beacon might work. But I do want to be clear that this option would be they can use their mobile device to check out items in the library. So this isn't, they go home and then they check out items, or they're, halfway down the street. That's not the way it should work. It should work that they're in the library and they can perform checkout on their own device.
So the beacon is what is used to be physically in a location to be able to, perform these.
Right, it would be either the beacon or the geographic location.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll now and share it. And you'll see we do have a few more libraries are interested in the checkout. And Tara, can you just recap perspective of like how many people have the mobile app
Yeah, so
in relation?
the mobile app accounts for about 8% of holds. Whereas to put that in context, I think the percentage for enterprise is, depending on your library, somewhere between 70 to 80%. So you're looking at a pretty small slice of our patrons that are using the app for, at least for placing holds, which is kind of our a good measure for us of how we judge how many people are using that. So it would be it would be just a small segment of your population potentially.
Right.
And actually, there's one more thing, something we have not looked into that I think is of interest for this is potentially using the app as, say, like a tablet-based just self-check station, and we haven't really investigated that possibility yet either. But that may be more useful for some libraries than the kind of function alone in the app.
So what you mean by that, Tara, which I've seen at least in a couple libraries, is they mount a tablet in a sort of configuration like an arm where it's locked in there, and it's a touch screen, so patrons would just go up and use that and scan items.
Yeah, and you definitely need to have something, certainly, especially since this is a checkout function, to log people out of the app on a pretty regular basis, which I have to admit I know very little about. So I think some of our other SWAN staff will be able to provide more guidance there. But again, lots of testing to do. And so you can look at just a quick shot of the barcode self-service would allow your patrons to scan an item barcode. It would use the camera on their device. And then I think the next slide would show the RFID service would scan or would use the RFID tags to read the device. So the other feature that we're looking into, or that that's in a pilot for Blue Cloud Mobile, is a feature called Click and Collect. So this is essentially the Cersei Dynex Blue Cloud Mobile app curbside solution. So it would allow patrons using the mobile app to pick up items that are available on hold for them. So I should note there is no phone or text option. So all has to be done through the mobile app, and then there is a staff client. So again, it's about 8% of holds are placed through the mobile app, so that might just be a small percentage of your users. So if you are offering a curbside service, our recommendation certainly would be to offer an alternate to using the app for that service. We kind of feel like while we love the app, we're very proud of it. We think it's a great service for those users that want to use an app. Not everybody does, and you don't want the app to be a barrier to service. So that's just something to kind of consider, that you might want to support both Click and Collect and Curbside Communicator, or some kind of others, homegrown solution, if that's just calling or texting for pickup, that you have at your library. If you offer curbside service, you likely wouldn't be abandoning your current solutions for managing that. This would most likely be a supplement to that. The other important thing to note is that this is in pilot site testing. So again, we have absolutely no idea at this point if it will, will run into issues, or if it will work with our current setup. So we do need to thoroughly test that, since we just got word of this super recently. And there are we do know that there are two components. So there's a patron interface, obviously through the mobile app, and then there's a staff interface that the library staff would use to manage those requests. And actually, I should note there are two staff interfaces. There's one for configuration, which would be through your Blue Cloud Mobile administration interface, and then there is a separate interface that your staff would use to manage the requests. So here you can see the patron interface on. I think if you click, we can kind of scroll through it so you can see there's a click and collect button. Your patron would be able to select the items that they want to pick up. So if they don't want to pick up all of their holds for some reason, they could just choose some of them. They're able to enter information about their car make, model, color to help your staff find them when they're on there or when they're outside. And this is sort of set up that the patron does this like from home or on their way to the library, so they're sending you this in advance so you can prepare their pickup. So once they enter that information, they can say how far away they are, or they could just say I'm here when they're there, and then once they say they're here, they'll get an estimated arrival, and there's an automatic messaging system kind of similar to Curbside Communicator that you can use to message them. And there's also an allowance in the app for hours that you can set. So if you're not available, then the patron might get a message, you can't pick up your items right now. Click and collect is not currently available. And if there's just no staff members, no one's logged in, then they would, to the staff interface, they would also get a message that there's no staff available. So this is the staff interface for managing requests. You see there's this kind of en route section for anyone that's, let you know they're on their way and will be there in 15 minutes. The ready section notes the items that are ready to send out to the patron. And then patrons that have arrived will show up in the arrived pane. And that is where you can send them messages. There's some automatic responses there. And you can also view the queue. If you see at the far right of the screen there, there's the max queue. That's how many people are allowed to be waiting in line. So they might get that, no one's available message if there's too many people for your curbside parking spaces. You can also view things like forthcoming sessions, which are people that are in process of filling out the information. They've opened the click and collect, but they haven't filled everything out. You can see your completed and canceled sessions also. I think we can go, so this is an example of the configuration screen. This might look familiar to some of you if you've been working in Blue Cloud Mobile and done some configuration there. You can set up your active hours, some of your questions that you have available to the patrons in the app for the information that you want to know. Like, for example, if you have parking spaces, we're hoping you would be able to add that there. Again, we haven't tested it, so this is just how we understand it to work. And then you've got some, some options to add your kind of scripted messages. And we just want to remind you, if you haven't been working on your Blue Cloud Mobile app, there are lots of options here for you to add links. If you, for example, just because if you choose not to use click and collect, you could still link to a page on your library website that describes your curbside process. So we just do want to remind you, you've got total freedom and free reign to add things to your app home screen. We can see Lansing here has added quite a few custom links. And there's also the option to add, there's fun icons built in. So we definitely encourage you to get in there and play around with that and figure out what would work best for your library.
Do you want to do some more polls, Tara?
Yeah, so I think we got a poll for curbside, and we'd like to learn more about what you currently use, and then I think we have another poll, correct, for if you're interested in click and collect.
Yes. All right, we're at 49% voted. We got to get up till 62 or more because that's what we've had with others.
Yeah,
Waiting
this should
on
be
one more vote. One more vote. Come on.
easy. It's just what
We
you
got it. All
currently
right.
do. All right.
Yeah. All right. And we're going to share the results here.
All right. So we got quite a few people offering curbside, either using the curbside communicator or your own process. So that's great.
All right. Let me get another poll going. All right.
All right. So now let us know. And if you don't know for sure, this is just gauging your interest, not a commitment to use it for life.
It's also helpful for us to know because while we think these are really have a potential in the library, this, we are bringing 3 new libraries on board in November and December. So we're kind of busy right now. So doing a lot of testing and configuration to get these new services out. Timing isn't great for us, but we do want to, that's why gauging your interest is really important to us.
Yeah, definitely. These will require both of the new services will definitely require a good amount of support, both for us and for you. So it's good to have an idea of your interest levels.
All right, I'm waiting on one more vote. I'm not going to get it, am I? All right, I got it. Yay. Okay, I'm going to close this poll and share it so you can kind of gauge,
Okay, so we've got maybe a few libraries interested.
So we'll be sending out some additional, calls for libraries who might be interested in helping us test as we try and see what these are going to do out in the wild with all of you. All right. And I think Ian's up.
Yeah. So there's been some discussion about potentially using a self-check in check-in mode to allow patrons to clear material off of their accounts. But as Dawn mentioned earlier, in a large consortial environment, there are a lot of variables that we need to take into account. So we discussed this briefly in our RFID users group last week and did some testing. And basically, we've determined that the safest method to allow your patrons to do this is to not check items in, but rather allow them to check items out to your quarantine user. So it'd be very similar to what they're used to doing because they're already checking items out. So you would just have like either a dummy card or a barcode that links to your quarantine user that users can scan, check their materials out to that quarantine user, which will effectively bypass any trapped holds, any transits, anything like that. The record will still retain the last patron ID if follow-up is required. So this is kind of the safest way to reuse a self-check in a method that will allow patrons to check materials in off of their card. There will be adjustments potentially required for your SIP port settings to allow some additional overrides. So if this is something that your library is interested in, open a ticket and I will take a look at your settings and see what needs to change to make this usable. But this is a really clean way of basically enabling patrons to remove items off of their record without kind of getting into all the gross things that can happen with transits and holds and all of that good stuff.
Hey, and this is Aaron. Do you have a sense of which are the self-check options maybe out there that even have a check-in screen?
The vast majority have the ability to do that. Whether or not they're enabled is another issue, but that's something that, again, we're willing to work with the libraries to ensure that your self-check software is capable of making the changes to allow, well, actually, no, it wouldn't even need a check-in because we're doing checkout. So it would still be a checkout. So every
Mhm.
self-check would be able to do this. So this is all pretty new, sorry. But basically,
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry.
yeah, you would be checking out to the quarantine user. They wouldn't actually be checking materials in, but it would effectively remove those items from their records. So you would reduce the number of people calling saying, hey, I returned this a week ago. Why is it still on my account? If this is a route you wanted to take, they would basically just check it out to a different user, to your library's quarantine user.
Thanks, Ian.
Sure.
All right, Stephen, you want to share our web services upgrade?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, we sent a news post and a SWAN.com announcement maybe a little over a week ago now, but rapidly approaching is November 5th, which is our web services 603 upgrade. And just to refresh your memory, web services is the integration that we have. It's one of our integrations with the Symphony server. Another way is SIP2, or we might have patrons authenticating over OpenAuth, and so those are some other ways that it happens. But web services controls a lot of third-party services that integrate with our Symphony server, and we're upgrading it to the latest and greatest 603, and that's happening overnight on the morning of November 5th. So 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. should hopefully take less time than that, and it's going to require an outage just of that service. Symphony and workflows will continue to remain up. Enterprise will also remain up, but certain aspects of Enterprise will be impacted. Just again, from the workflow side, there's Symphony will remain up. You don't have to use offline mode or anything like that. Our nightly processing will be on schedule. But on the Enterprise side, patrons will not be able to log into their account. So my account functions will not work. They won't be able to place holds or run payments. In addition, item availability, it won't show that the item's at your library because it can't get that information from the server. Additionally, some other services will be impacted, things like mobile staff, the mobile app. Those are all integrating over web services as well. And one thing that I also forgot to mention here is that there are third-party services that also integrate over web services that would be impacted during that time. So those are things like Communico, Demco, SpringShare, Capira. I'll include a list of these when I send the reminder announcement. But again, it's going to be sometime between 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. that Thursday, November 5th. After that, web services will be back up and all those services will integrate like normal again. So we're expecting impact to be pretty minimal.
Thank you. And this is one of those key, updates we want to have in place prior to the work we're going to be doing with the new libraries coming on board. And their tech freeze is starting November 23rd. So we're less than a month away to starting the process of bringing Glenside, Roselle, and Warrenville into the SWAN catalog. So we'll be pretty busy from mid-November through mid-December, making sure that all of that data comes in. The impact that is going to affect all of us in SWAN is the December 5th and 6th weekend. That's a Saturday, Sunday. We're going to be rebuilding the index. And, I think the last time we did that was in January of this current year. So that re-indexing can take a little bit longer than 24 hours. So we want to make sure that we've got that full time schedule blocked off. If you do have staff on the weekends doing things, just be aware that December 5th is going to be an offline day, so you will have to be working in offline mode. Depending on what services you're providing, if you're just providing curbside, you could have everything prepped prior to that date and then just not process and just do the curbside service. So just think about being offline September 5th or December 5th and 6th. And the new libraries will be offline December 7th and 8th as their patron records and transaction records are loaded. But the current SWAN operating members will not be offline during that time. And then we welcome the new libraries and we'll see all their patrons and their stuff December 9th. So we're getting close to the final load, and so far it's been smooth, and we're happy to have Glenside, Roselle, and Warrenville join us. Look for updates as we get closer to, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to be impacted, kind of the same stuff Stephen just went over with a web services upgrade. Okay, Tara, Aspen.
All right, so we are officially headed into our Aspen pilot phase. We're looking to start the pilot in December, and basically what it would entail is that we'd have five to seven libraries that would participate. We do want to keep it small just because there will be a lot of troubleshooting and bugs to uncover and things to work on. So it will be kind of and it will be intensive in time for both the pilot libraries and for SWAN staff. So just having a few libraries will help us catch all the issues while keeping things manageable for everyone involved. So if you are interested in being a pilot library, we're looking to start sign up in November 5th. So we'll have an online forum. We'll share that with everyone, and you would be able to kind of fill that out to let us know that you're interested. And then we'd have some questions for you to make sure that you're prepared to support your staff in the pilot. So those commitments from your library would involve dedicating probably between 2 and 3 staff members. If you really could only dedicate one staff member, we could definitely make that work. And those staff would be your pilot leads that would attend weekly meetings with SWAN staff. So this would be every Monday at 10 a.m. We just decided to go ahead and set that time because it is hard to schedule a bunch of people together. So we thought it might just be easier to go ahead and set the time that we'll have those meetings. And there would be lots of staff time spent on our research assignments. So those might involve getting feedback from other staff. It could involve helping with usability testing with patrons. If you're concerned about in-person interactions, we have been doing online usability testing to actually a great success. We've had a couple rounds of that now, so that's been working out really well. And if you're just depending on the situation over the next couple of months, if your library is open to patrons, there might be some, we might ask, to put Aspen up on an OPAC computer and see how patrons respond to it, that kind of thing. There would also be some staff time dedicated to training and patron support. Your pilot leads especially they would be configuring your Aspen catalog. There's a lot more options to customize your catalog in Aspen than there are in Enterprise. So that would require some training and configuration time. And then your library staff would also need training to feel prepared to support patrons in using Aspen. And then the end of the pilot would involve releasing your beta catalog. If you've ever kind of seen a website that says like, try our new website, try the beta version of this service, that's the kind of thing we would ask you to have that beta link on your library catalog or your library website and make that available to patrons.
Tara, I just wanted to show where all of your usability studies and other information is.
Yeah, and you can get that. Actually, there's also a short URL to support.swanlibraries.net/Aspen, and there's links there to the test catalogs we've been working on. And yeah, so we hope that we'll get some libraries interested. If you're wondering how we will choose the libraries that participate, we are looking at a couple factors. One is we do want a few cataloging libraries to participate. There are some, because Aspen groups records together. So, if you have different formats of like DVD and Blu-ray, it will group those together. And there's certainly going to be, there's some manual manipulation that has to happen in addition to some of the automated processes. So we were hoping to get at least 2 cataloging libraries, but do sign up if you're not a cataloging library. We'll also have plenty to do in our other areas for kind of our patron facing services and configuration. So yeah, I hope we get some signups. And here's a proposed timeline that will kind of help you figure out if this might be a possibility for you. We are looking at the pilot from running from December to around April of next year. If you do have like a building remodel or that kind of thing, just keep that in mind. Obviously, as you're planning out your projects, how those might overlap and take up your staff time. But we would be looking at we'd have our kickoff meeting in December, December 14th, I believe is when we plan that. And then we'd be looking at configuration from December through January, staff training also in January, and then a beta launch in February where you would make the catalog available as kind of a sneak peek for your patrons, and we could start getting some patron feedback. And it's especially important to just see it in the wild, and all of the weird scenarios that you'll encounter every day getting thrown at it will be really valuable. And then we'll also do some more kind of plan testing in that time, and continue to tweak and develop until the potential go live if Aspen is chosen as the direction we want to go.
So Tara, we are getting libraries excited about this. So again, when can we sign up and where?
November 5th, we will have on the SWAN support site, we'll definitely be there, and then SWANcom will send out all the places, our link for you to sign up and let us know you're interested.
So mark November 5th on your calendar to pay attention to your email, right?
Yep, check your email. Probably throw something up on the forums as well. SWAN support site, so you should have that link ready and in front of your eyeballs in one of our many places.
All right, Erin, send us off into the final week before the election.
Thank you all for from the SWAN staff and those of you who are in attendance and responding to our polls. I think you're helping us get a sense of how to shift and plan with some of these new features coming our way. And for those of you that are hearing about Aspen for the first time, just know that resource page on the support site will really kind of help give you an overview. We do have a video embedded there, and that was the one that we did with the organization Bywater. So I'd say it's fairly thorough in going over some features, but we did also do a presentation at our September 3rd quarterly meeting also about Aspen. So for those of you who've seen or attended that meeting, we're just following through on what we said would be the next phase of this project. So we do have some upcoming membership meetings. Our Fireside Chat are going to be monthly, but we also have some other ones posted. The L2 system was updated, so we didn't have all of our events in there, but we've been really working hard to get all of the 2021s posted. So you should see those now if you're used to using L2, or you can always come to the SWAN support site and look over any meetings and trainings listed there under the this breadcrumb here shows it's under the support site, meetings and trainings and documents. So training is available as well. We've got our SWAN 100 project, which are the 3 libraries joining SWAN, making us 100 strong. Those videos are also recorded and presented there, and some tutorials and trainings. Keep in mind, you have to log into the support site to make sure you see everything. I made that mistake the other day. I said, what happened to all our training? And I realized I was not logged in. So just a quick reminder on that as well. So any SWAN staff want to share anything else? Otherwise, I think we're going to be bringing this to a close and we can end the recording.